So welcome to another video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we are taking, finally, a look at John Company 2nd Edition from Wherlegig Games. This is a review that a lot of people have been asking for, especially recently, because I think
Well, we've played it a lot over the past 6 weeks.
and I think as we've started to mention, they're like, "Oh, are you going to do a review?" This is it.
Yeah.
So John Company is a massive multiplayer everything game.
Sure.
It has, there's so much in here. It is an economy game. I think primarily it's this economy game. Mm-hmm. New players, families, starting in the 18th century, and you are trying to invest in and work for...
No. That's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to make money.
Yes.
And it does not always require you to invest.
But it's about, generally speaking,
Sure.
broadly, you're working within the confines of the East India Company, trying to plunder the Indian subcontinent for its resources.
A very cynical
to
game
trade
in that regard.
or to do military conquests. You're trying to gain money, and you're trying to do all of that so that you can retire your family members to very expensive stately homes.
And gain victory points.
The thesis of the game is very gross, but it's the game itself, what you're doing, especially if you've got lots of players around the table, is so much negotiation, player interaction like that. But then you're rolling dice to resolve things, but it's allocation of resources to see how many dice you get. And then there's all sorts of risk, but you're also doing that typically on loans that you've taken out. So you have to make money to pay back your loans.
You're mortgaging your future, you're hedging your bets, trying to make this company and all its machinations work together so that at the end of the turn, you have 30 or 40, dollars, pounds, right, that you have made and that you can pay dividends.
But pay your company's overheads.
Pay the cost, maintaining your troops, maintaining your ships.
Pay the interest on
paying the interest on your debts, and then hopefully have a little money left over to pay some dividends.
Although to the board members.
To the board members. To only the board members, right? Nobody else gets them unless you actually have invested and put guys onto the board. But it's a very fragile system.
Yes.
And one misstep, and this misstep can be in the form of a ton of bad events that kind of crush everything you've built.
Or even missing a very specific trade roll that you needed.
You needed to open this market that would have gained you 9 pounds, and you failed it, right? And it was a hard thing. You only rolled 3 dice, and you needed 1, or 2. So it's not easy, right? Or somebody doesn't end up doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's one of my favorite parts about the game. Yes. All of the offices, from the shipping manager to the trade minister to the governors of the different territories and areas, the president of the Madras company and the blah, blah, blah. All these people have to kind of they're a cog in the wheel.
Yes.
They've got to invest the money that the chairman graced them with or bribed them with, right? And they've got to do their part. And then sometimes somebody says, you know what, I'm just not going to do that. Or I'm going to take that money and I'm going to do something that doesn't make sense for the rest of you, but it makes sense for me.
Yes. And so that's where you get into like the real crux of what the game is you can play it kind of one of 2 ways. Where
I think one of those ways is better, but that's my opinion, right?
Sure.
The semi-cooperative part of the game is...
But you as a player typically have some stake in the company.
Yes.
Whether that is officers kind of out, in India, or you've got people on the board of directors, or some other, in the army, things like that. And if you trade well, you get money. Or if the company does really well, you get dividends. You get money, you can retire, guys. Excellent. But there might come a point where, or if you don't have that much invested in that, you don't have many officers, you don't have anyone on the board of directors, you don't necessarily care. everyone else is getting rich. So I might instead be doing a bunch of other things. I'll put out writers. Those guys can make commissions, which is great, but they don't really have a stake in the company per se. And so I might then start buying external workshops and divest my portfolio. And if the company tanks and goes under because it doesn't meet public expectations, they get in an unconscionable amount of debt, they can't make any money, if they lose a bunch of military conquests and their prestige goes down, I don't care. I own a bunch of factories back in England.
I'm going to get 7 or 8 victory points from that.
If the company fails, I get a bunch of victory points from having divested my portfolio. And so if I have a bunch of those, it's actually in my interest to tank the company because I only get those victory points if the company goes under.
Yeah.
And so this is where we get into the kind of semi-co-op part of it, is like in a 6-player game, you'll have at least one person almost proactively working against the company, or at least not doing anything to help.
Because the way at the outset of the game, you're kind of distributed a number of cards that provide you with your starting positions, right? And you may be really good on the board or really good in certain areas, but you're not going to be good in every single area.
Yes.
So therefore, not everything is of a concern to you. And it kind of sets the direction of the game from that. And is that I can't remember, do we actually draft those?
You can do it either way.
You can either
just get dealt the 3 cards.
And you take the 3, or you can pick one,
you can do a draft
pass them on, which I kind of like the draft. We did that on our second game, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Maybe we didn't.
We did that with at SDHC. We drafted those ones.
This last one, everybody got what you...
Yeah, we played with a lot of new players, and it's hard to assess what you've got, so you just steal them.
So really at the beginning of the game, a lot of that direction is kind of determined for you by the way the cards come out. But that doesn't mean that you can't get involved or get back into it. I would say this about...
you can, if you want to.
Everything in the game is negotiable.
Everything.
From, hey, I don't have any seats on the board. You've got 4. For me to do what you want me to do, you're going to have to give me one of your seats.
And I can. I can
and
just
you
take
can
my guy
literally
off
take
and
your
put
guy. Yep.
On.
And I haven't seen that happen much.
No, but it's...
But it can.
It can.
Or you can, I promise I will do this, right? You give me that money, I promise I'll at least open that market so that your writer can get some money, or I'll promote your officer to the leader of the army. I mean, there's any number of things that you can negotiate.
And almost everything does get negotiated.
Yes.
It's like, I'll give you £1 to do that. I'll give you £1 to not do that. I'll give you £1 to build my ship instead of his.
Yep.
I'll give you one of my promissory notes to like, let me do this thing. I'll put my writer out.
The promissory notes are probably the best part of the game because they are things that, they're all different types of things, right? You can vote with my votes during an election.
If you've got a lot of votes,
you've got my card.
Incredibly powerful.
You can take £2 from me at any time. That's a very dangerous one to give away. At any time. You can, what are some of the others?
There's my consent for nepotism.
So you can promote yourself or one of your family members in a company or an area, because normally you have to get everybody to
normally
agree.
You'd have to have everyone agree to you promoting your own son. Ugh.
Yeah.
But if you have these consent for nepotisms, and if you can bribe enough people, hey, I'll promote my own guy.
So those things, it's a part of the negotiation machine, but it helps you to get in, even if you don't have money, even if you don't have a lot of control and power, you always have those cards that are, in essence, control and power.
Yeah.
You just got to use them in a different way. And it makes for a very interesting exercise.
Yeah. So, and I think that's what I love about this game, because I'll straight up, this is one of my favorite games ever.
I've played it 3 times now, and I absolutely love it, even though I suck something fierce at it. But it's fun.
I do not care how many points I get in this game.
Got it, yep.
If I lose, if I'm in negative victory points, I couldn't care less, because it is so fun doing the game.
It's pretty interesting.
The negotiations, the interactions, the dice rolls, everything that goes on. That's the joy of the game. At the end, someone's won.
Sure.
For me personally, I don't care about that.
I care, but that's...
I mean, I'm trying to do well.
But if I don't really
But
care.
I'm not, there are some games where I'm like, whoa, we had a tight battle, I lost. I'm like, oh, This one I'm like,
yeah, because it's fun.
if I get hosed in the game, who cares? Doing this stuff in this is so enjoyable for me.
Sure.
It gives me
Yeah.
a lot of the things that I like in Here I Stand, with all the player interactions and the intricacies and negotiations, but it's a little bit more free form, and you don't have the war game hardcore aspect of it.
Sure. But there still is, I mean, there's war and combat and opening markets, and it's all very war game like.
Yeah, you know, you can go hard on the military campaigns and do conquests, so you get loot, but only for the army guys.
Sure.
And then you open up governorships, and it's like, ooh, I'd like to become a regional governor.
Yep.
And they have a lot of power.
There's a lot of money to be made.
And that's
there.
like, you open up all these little mini games in it.
It is so interesting because I've seen newer players like and I remember the first time I played, I had no friggin' idea. I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? But, you know, certain players will overlook certain aspects. Like, I'm going to be honest, being involved in the military in some way, shape, or form is very key.
It can be very lucrative.
Because if you are the leader of the army, you're going to gain trophies, which equate to victory points. You're going to gain money, which equate to being able to retire people, right? And you're also going to have the opportunity to really affect the game and steer the game in a certain direction if you're cagey and smart enough. Like, I remember one time I was I think I was the general of Bombay, and nobody wanted to attack in Bombay. And I thought to myself, man, I've got to convince these people.
Yeah.
And that's when I started saying, you know, I know it's 2 turns away, but this one's worth, what is it, 7 points? The very furthest
that was going
northern.
up to Punjab, I think, is what it was.
But you've got to use your negotiation skills to get people to start thinking in a different way.
And sometimes those negotiation skills have monetary value to them.
Well, yeah, you throw a coin in, and it makes it a lot easier. But trying to do those things is, to me, one of the best parts of the game. Trying to make the best out of the situation that you were in. You may not be at the center of it. You're not the chairman or you're not this, but you've got to find a way to carve out your portion and get what you need to ultimately do what you need to do. And that's retire your family members, which I've never been that good at.
Well, yeah, there's some dice rolling involved in that.
That is the only part of the game I think that I won't say that I dislike it, but we played that entire 5-turn game, and I think I had 1 or 2 person every time that I could have retired. I retired 1 dude.
Your dice rolling is too good.
1 dude, because you want to roll high on that, right? You want to roll a 4, 5, or a 6 to either get an exhaustion token, which adds a modifier next time. So that it's like, oh, I'm gonna definitely retire next time, maybe. But I kept rolling 1s and 2s, and I don't know. It just, that's the only part of the game that I don't. Because, man, I had $27 at the very end?
Something like that.
I had 5 guys that I was trying to retire. Now, 2 of them got killed because of insurrections.
We had a lot of bad
and that happens. But the other 3, I'm like, okay, I'm at least going to get 1 of these. And sure enough, I rolled like 1s and 2s, and it's like, great. So here I was, at the end of the game, I threw 27 pounds into the trash can and didn't get to retire another guy. Had I retired 1 more guy, I won the game. And I wish there was a way to affect that more, but that's part of the game. It's a game. Ultimately, it's a game.
Yeah.
Lots of dice rolling, it's a game.
Yeah, so I think what I love is that you have the kind of 2 trajectories of what the game looks like, typically. Mm-hmm. You're either going to have a company that is going to, at the end of the game, have succeeded, and that usually is people have invested and the roles have gone at least reasonably well.
And not paid dividends too much. Or
every time,
You did double payments one time, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? But it ended up working out.
Yes.
And I got $4 for it. I'm like, I was good.
And there's some gamey elements to that. I knew we were at the end of it. I knew we had royal protection, so it's like, let's take the money for ourselves. The government will take care of us.
Sure.
Which is also great. And you know, it's this building thing, and you kind of get rolling, and people are getting money, and it's great. Or you have the kind of the reverse of that, where it is stripping a carcass, and people are... Either the rolls go real bad, real quick, real early.
Or the events go really bad. Or
people are just like not willing to invest. Mm-hmm. And so the the company's trajectory is going down very quickly, and you can see, and then it's rats fleeing a sinking ship.
Sure.
Which is also fun. It's just very different.
Well, it really creates a second style of game, like you're saying. It really is very different than the other one where we're all working together. You're all kind of still working together because you want it to go one more turn.
Some of you are pumping the bilges, and the other ones are like,
throwing water into it.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, it's interesting. We played with Harold Buchanan at San Diego Historicon.
Yes.
And he has a very different play style where everything is negotiable. And what I mean by that is he won't do nothing. Unless you're going to pay him or cause him benefit.
He might be the chairman and have a bunch of guys on the board, but he's like, doesn't care.
So, and I'll say this, Harold, I love you. Playing with those kind of players can be a little challenging because ultimately you've got to give in a little bit to make the company do a little well, right? Somewhat well, so that you can get more money. And I think sometimes people forget that. There comes a point where you just kind of either got to give in or move on. Right?
And I would say what I like about the game, I love the game so much, I kind of want it to go a bit longer.
Sure.
But typically, I'm a company man. I'm happy to contribute and happy to chip in and make the game a success and go that little bit longer, so I can enjoy playing John Company more. But I don't begrudge people who are like very cutthroat about it.
Agree. I don't either. I just think there comes a point where it's like, okay, you got to move on, right?
You make yourself a pariah, but you have to then make the rest of the table understand that person's a pariah, and we cannot let them gain power. Yeah. And so then that's a whole sub-game within it.
It is.
That's the beauty of this, is everything is moving parts, everything interlocks, and it
really works.
So good.
It works very well together also.
Yes.
I remember the first time we played, I was a little hesitant, right? Because and it's my game. I bought it because I wanted it. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, I don't know how to get this plate to spin and that lever to go. But you learn that over time. Yeah. And with any good game, you're going to continually learn and understand. My third play this last Saturday, I thought I did pretty well. I just couldn't roll to retire. But frankly, I had put myself in a position to do everything I needed to do. I thought I masterfully got into. I was the president of 2 of the companies at one time, and I'm like, what the hell?
You had a lot of regional governors
and a lot of governors. How did people let that happen? I think I swindled you. Or you just agreed because you were done.
I was buying shares at the end, and I didn't have any writers, so I couldn't get myself into any of those.
Sure. And I think I paid you to at least be put into some of the positions. But, after a third play, I'm like, okay, I get it. I understand what I need to be doing. But then even with that, based on your initial draw or draft, you're going to have to play a different game every single time.
Yeah.
You really are. You can't just go in with a general formula and say, I'm going to do this and win. You've got to dabble in some different things based on the circumstances. And to me, that's a sign of a good game because that's going to lead to a different experience, a unique experience every time I play it.
Yeah. There's so much in here. Like, we haven't even talked about like the parliament stuff.
Sure,
there's
the
a
voting.
Prime Minister, and there's all this voting. There is a deck of law cards.
And they all
And in
suck.
a 5-turn game, you're going to see at most 5 of those if the game doesn't end quickly. That deck is like 20, 25 cards big, and so there's stuff you won't even see until your 3rd, 4th, 5th place.
The London season deck is another thing. When you retire family members, you're able to then draw one of those cards, and they are incredibly powerful. They're either blackmail cards, which are turned upside down so that not everybody can see them, or they're just cool little special abilities like you can retire guys for 2 cheaper,
and I'll give you some victory points.
Right, or you can do this and
tell them to give you a bunch of votes.
And there's a bunch of those, and I've only seen a half of those so far, if even that. So there's a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of replayability. Each game is going to be very, very different. And then we've played 6-player, I think, once.
Yeah, we played 6-player at San Diego.
And then 4-player twice.
And then I played 2 6-player games at WBC.
Okay.
That was my first ever games.
I like the 6-player better because you really only have to worry about typically 1 office. Maybe 2.
Yeah, I also agree. I like 6 players because there's just more people to negotiate with.
Right.
If you burn a bridge, there's more people that you could kind of work with.
To go to and start saying, hey, let's work together now. Yeah.
Or it might be easier to form a block to do something.
Right.
Things like that. That was really, really cool to have lots of players doing it. And it was nice because we had basically the same group played twice in a row.
Okay.
And so that was nice because a lot of us were very new.
And people
And then the second game was like, oh, okay. And the second one was much better as an experience as well.
I do also like one of the things in the game that we all, I mean, you're going to be rolling somewhere between 2 and 5 or maybe 6 six-siders. And you have to typically roll 1s or 2s.
Yeah, you need a 1 or a 2 on most every roll.
So you're rolling, once again, 2 to 5 or 6 dice. And you've got a little table on your player aid that it's random, so it's not really accurate because you can't predict randomness. But it says, okay, if you roll 5 dice, based on the statistics, that's a 70% chance or 80% chance of success. Meaning, of all those dice, you're going to roll at least 1 or 2, 80% of the time. And then you go and you roll those dice and you don't roll a 1 or a 2. And that happens a lot. It happens a lot more than you think. But that's part of the game.
And
Judging.
And anytime people are like, oh, I'm just going to roll 3 dice, everyone's like,
no! Especially because, hey, we have a couple bucks, and typically a die only costs $1.
Just like spend the
So go ahead and spend the extra buck. I know you're trying to get by, and you think you're somehow a good roller, but spend the extra buck. Get 4 dice. My gosh, that's a hell of a lot better chance than 3 dice. But the tension with each of those dice rolls is fantastic. The gasping, the holding of the breath. And when you roll in dice trays like we have, you can't always see all the results from your seat.
Yeah, I'm
so
across the table.
It's even more tense.
Did we do it? Did we do it?
And that's just the best part. And you have a lot of those rolls. You have rolls to open markets. You have rolls on the combat. You have rolls on the completing trades. Everything's basically a roll. And then the part I hate the most, but I love it, is that damn event die at the end of every turn.
Yeah, you roll that event die, and the event die is just all bad stuff.
Well, the best one is you only get 1 event with like a storm.
You get 1 event, you get 3 storms.
3 storms.
A storm in each area, which can be bad.
Storms are bad because that can destroy your ships, which require you to spend more money to rebuild them, and that's not good. But the events are just so... Aren't there 1 or 2 that are good?
Yeah,
maybe.
There's a little event deck, and there's, I think, 2 windfalls, which are good, and there's a couple of peace cards, which is, I think, 4 out of 20. Like the 25 or 30 cards are good. The rest of them are all like
terrible.
Internal turmoil within India, or very bad things happening to you with rebellions or foreign invasions, things like that. That's the one part of the game that I think most people struggle with, because some of the way that the rules are written and the iconography is done between what's on the card, what's on the play aid, and then what's in the rule book. Yeah, that's you just don't want to mess it up.
The cards are really cool. They're circular. They look like coasters.
Yeah.
Right? And you draw one, and then don't you refer to the top of the next one? And they're all graphical. I thought that was a very slick way to do it. Now, it makes it a little challenging to adjudicate sometimes if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, you got to do that and then go through the process of all of that. And there's like a number of different kind of flowcharty style things like, hey, is this going to do this? And if it does and successful, what happens then? There's a big play aid for that. But I think a lot of people find that somewhat opaque and impenetrable. Sure. Oh, good gracious. Now I feel bad because I don't remember his name. But
Harvey?
No, the guy who taught me this originally, he's English but lives in Australia.
Okay.
It was Tim's friend. I'm very sorry that I can't remember your name, but he did an excellent job of teaching that part of it, and I watched him go through it all, and so I feel a bit more comfortable with that part of it. I think that's one of the kind of hang-ups of the game, where everyone loves the game, then it gets to the events phase, and everyone's kind of like, okay.
I got to go to the bathroom.
He does this and this, and then where does he move, and which way is the elephant pointing? That kind of stuff.
And all that stuff's important, right? There's symbols on the board that the elephant, which represents revolution and inner turmoil, or expansion,
lots of things.
Where he's pointing is where he's going to go, so you got to figure that out. But I'm going to say it. I love this game.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite games.
I enjoy it. And actually, it's not really as long as I mean, it's still a 4-hour game.
I think, so we played it 6-player, went the whole 5 turns, and it was, I think it was 4.5, 5 hours.
Okay. So we played 4 hours last Saturday, 4 hours with 4 players for 5 turns.
Yeah, which is players kind of makes a bit more sense.
And I love it. It is a long game. It's an involved game. It's a complex game. It's not for the faint of heart.
No.
So just understand that.
And then, then you get into the kind of the moral aspect of the game.
Sure.
The things that you're doing in this game are at times horrendous.
You're basically raping and pillaging the Indian subcontinent. And I know it's a game. I do feel a little gross when I'm doing it.
That's the thesis of the game, though, is you're doing all this gross stuff there and exploiting those resources to make yourself money and just skim as much out of this as you can. To retire guys who you have to pay upkeep for and do nothing for you for the rest of the game.
No.
Like,
well, they hold that victory points, so you better keep paying them.
Yeah, the more expensive it is, but they don't help
you
do more stuff.
No.
So it's part of it's really interesting.
It's an interesting paradox because you're trying desperately to get them to retire, ultimately to make the game harder for you.
It reminds me in a way of Dominion, where you're buying those estates and stuff.
That water your deck down.
Hurt your deck.
Yeah. And that's a very similar concept because your upkeep, and the upkeep on like the lowest levels, I think is 0.
Right? The lowest one has none. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
And I had 1 in the 3, and I'm going to be honest, I had to plan for that every single turn.
Yeah.
And I had to remind myself, okay, Grant, you're trying to retire a guy. You need at least, I think I needed 14 to at least get to the level that I could retire at because of a card I had.
That's right, you had
which
that
was
limitation.
really valuable, but man, that hurt. I would never take that one again, by the way. But you're thinking, okay, I want to retire another guy, so I need 14. Then I got to upkeep that guy, so I need 3. And you just got to think that way. So you got to think about how in the hell can I get 5 or 6 coin this turn? You got to be cagey about it. You can't just be flippant.
Yeah,
you got to think about it.
If you leave it down to the dice rolling, you're like, that's not a good strategy. You can't rely on that.
One, there was a comment. I posted some pictures on our Facebook page on Saturday, and someone said, I hate that game because it's totally random and not the best player wins. And I utterly disagree with that. The best player will win that game. Not always, but a good amount of the time, because you've got to understand what you've got to do, how you got to do it. You got to put that plan into action. You've got to be very flexible to adjust as things don't work out the way you thought they would. That's what being a good player means, in my opinion.
I can fully understand why someone would say that, though.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of randomness to it.
Yeah. It's something I think about with this game. It's so interesting because the reality is everything that you do is a dice roll.
Yes.
Which is random.
100%.
But everything else in the game is
about positioning.
Is positioning and negotiation and totally up for grabs.
Yep.
There's no mechanisms that lock you into doing things.
Yeah.
It's about let's make this happen. And so, these dice rolls are random, but how much money do we have there to do that? Well, how much debt did we take out? Could we have made the chairman take out more debt and agree to do that? What could I have done to line his pockets to take out more debt?
Do I spend this extra coin to get 1 more die, even though I'm confident 4 die is enough? Dice is enough, right? You need to make all those decisions. But I just disagree because I hate it when people say, and even one of the members of our group was like, well, that game's just too random. And I said, no, it's not. There's randomness.
Yeah.
But the whole thing's not random. There's a lot of planning and prep and understanding. And after 3 plays, I'm finally starting to get it. So it's becoming even that much more enjoyable for me.
Yeah, and yes.
And this is a game that forever I will take along to our big wargaming conventions.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like, this sits with like Fire in the Lake and Here I Stand as great convention games. It can sit a lot of people, and everyone's interacting, we're having a good time.
And it's best when you have that 5 and 6 players.
Agreed.
So Very enjoyable. I'm very glad that I backed this, the second edition Kickstarter, a couple of years ago.
And you have the one with the fancy coins, which are very nice.
The whole thing is very nice. My only problem is the box is too small. Now, I've been able to fit everything in there.
Yeah, you can get everything in, but you have to have packaged it like perfectly.
So it is all in there, and I can actually put the lid, and my lid is split, so don't. And it only has a little bit of rise.
But I could
finagle those and it won't have rise. But I wish they'd have just made the box a little bigger. But just make it a little bigger.
Like it has those custom trays in it, but they have loose lids.
They don't lock.
And those are full.
So if I turn this on its side, it all spills out.
Like a millimeter's gap, all that stuff is messed up.
Yeah.
That's the only bummer with it.
But the production is fantastic. I mean, your family tokens, the card thickness, the cool Prime Minister dial.
Yeah.
The play aids are really good. The board is great. The art's very cool. I mean, look at the inside of the box. It has like an Indian assembly.
Playing with the game is really enjoyable.
Yeah. It's a great game. I will forever say that. I will continue to play it.
It's a lot of things that I love in a game.
Sure.
They were all in this one thing.
Negotiation, interaction, backstabbing, a little bit of luck, a lot of luck, randomness. It has some conflict. It has some strategizing. It has it all.
Yeah,
it has it all.
Planning and the table talk is wonderful in this game.
Plus, if you get people that know the game, I think you can play it in 3 hours.
Yes,
I really do.
It can go along at a good clip. But then, conversely, we'll sit here for 20 minutes arguing about who should be the chairman.
Sure. Yeah. Once again, everything's up for negotiation and discussion.
Everyone. And people are like, wow, we're at a deadlock. Is there like a rule to make this happen? I'm like,
nope.
No.
So then everybody just says, okay, you're the chairman. Right?
Yes.
You just have to move on.
That's what I loved about it. I loved that part of the game because it was like, someone's got to say yes. That's all.
Yep. Someone's got to say yes.
And if everyone's too tight,
Yeah.
I don't know. There was just fascinating things that happen, and there's always something new in every time I've played this.
There's a lot to like, and I think if you enjoy those style of games, you're going to love it.
Yes.
So get your hands on a copy, get 5 or 6 friends together, enjoy it. I'm going to continue enjoying it.
We have not played the Firms side of the board.
Which I would like to try that.
Yeah, it adds more layers of complexity, and I'm not sure what it does to the game.
Sure.
Some people love it, some people it's not worth it.
Got it.
So I'm curious to try that at some point. But yes.
Well, but that even shows the game is even that much more versatile, right?
Yes.
You can try a whole nother.
You have your own little mini East India company.
Yeah.
That's like contracted within the larger company, so you've got to keep yourself afloat. But maybe you care less about. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about that, having not played it. But yeah, I love this game. It was wonderful. I have a wonderful time playing it. This comes with my highest recommendations, if this is the style of game that you like. Obviously, if you don't like that kind of game, it's definitely not going to be for you. But
not going to be for everyone, but I do think everyone should play it and enjoy it and experience it.
Yeah, and again, we'll take this to cons and have this available. So
I will never fly with this again, though. I
don't know if I'll ever fly with any board games after what we experienced.
My corner got smashed, and I thought I packed it pretty well and insulated it, but that's just what happens. I would have never done that, but that's fine. Live and learn, right? Duct tape will do wonders. Yeah. Not really.
John Company from Wherlegig Games. Check it out if you're interested, but appreciate you for tuning in. I've been Alexander for theplayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.